Today's news highlights. Date February 4, 2025. News highlights: U.S. President Donald Trump announced a 10% tariff on Chinese goods and a 25% tariff on Canadian and Mexican products, raising concerns about a global trade war. Minister of Economic Affairs Guo Zhihui said that he will promote 4 major strategies to help enterprises cope, including the establishment of a project service team, the provision of overseas layout information, the establishment of an investment and trade center in the United States, and the promotion of Taiwan-US technical cooperation. Taiwan factories are actively deploying in Mexico and the United States, and manufacturers such as Honhai, Pegatron, and Compal are evaluating their plans to set up factories. Brand players such as Acer are also adjusting their supply chains to ensure competitive advantage. News highlights: the AI market is still in a gold rush, but capital is shifting to infrastructure, and real estate and private equity funds are actively investing in data centers, such as Blue Owl Capital and Blackstone. Although Nvidia is affected by DeepSeek, its AI cloud partner CoreWeave is growing rapidly, which may drive up the demand for H100 and H200 chips. In addition, Wang's presence in new areas such as Omniverse, Cosmos, and humanoid robots shows that AI still has high growth potential in the future. The theme of AI in Taiwan and US stocks is still hot, but the flow of market funds needs to be paid attention to. News highlights: US President Donald Trump announced a 1-month delay in the implementation of tariffs on Mexico after speaking with Mexican President Sheinbaum. Mexico will send an additional 10,000 National Guard troops to the border to prevent drugs and illegal immigration. After the announcement, the Mexican peso stopped falling and recovered, and the shares of the affected automobile and beer industries narrowed their losses. The two sides will commence trade and security talks to seek a bilateral agreement. According to the analysis, this move leaves room for Mexico's tariff negotiations and helps stabilize market confidence. News highlights: the Korea Cultural Industry Promotion Agency, KCA, has successfully built a global presence by supporting small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, through investment and marketing resources, and actively expanding into the international market. In contrast, the Taiwan Cultural Content Institute, TAICSA, still faces financial and market challenges. Korean companies regard investment in cultural and creative industries as a marketing cost, while the government provides tax incentives and policy support to ensure the steady growth of the industry. The key is that the quality of content determines success or failure, and if Taiwan wants to promote cultural export, it must strengthen policy incentives, international marketing, and investment mechanisms to make the industry truly competitive. News highlights: Panama President Mamulino announced that Panama will strengthen cooperation with the United States and will not renew China's One Belt, One Road agreement, which may be terminated early. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio visited Panama and stressed that the CCP's influence on the Panama Canal must change. Mulino pledged to uphold the canal's sovereignty and will review the concessions of Chinese companies in the region. The two sides also discussed expanding the repatriation program for migrants. The U.S. side believes that the Panama Canal is vital to U.S. strategy and may strengthen its influence in the region in the future. News highlights: the monopoly phenomenon of the AI industry points out that although big tech emphasizes the democratization of AI, it actually controls the market through chip supply and closed software. However, DeepSeek R1 challenges this golden formula with a low-cost deployment and open-source strategy, enabling AI applications to scale from the bottom up and break the monopoly of tech giants. The essence of open source cannot be blocked, and the future AI competition will not be limited to chips, but will depend on the development of the open source ecosystem and the participation of global developers. News highlights: Taiwan stocks fell sharply yesterday, and the Bureau of Labor Fund Management said that there were still 352 billion yuan of funds in hand waiting for an opportunity to enter the market. Deputy Director Lu Liru stressed that the self-operated position, as a market adjustment tool, has been traded yesterday. In 2024, driven by the wave of AI, the government's 3 major pension funds will earn a huge profit of 1.293 trillion yuan for the whole year, with a record rate of return. Among them, the scale of labor funds reached 7.479 trillion yuan, with a yield of 16.48%. Lu Liru reminded that the single-day plunge of Taiwan stocks does not represent the follow-up trend, and the fund will still be prudently arranged. News highlights: U.S. stocks fell with Eurasian stocks in early trading on the 3rd, falling 665 points at one point and then quickly converged to within 100 points. The key turning point came when Mexican President Sheinbaum announced that Trump's tariffs would be delayed by a month. Trump also revealed that he communicated with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and the White House clarified that the tariff policy had been misunderstood. In addition, Trump agreed that the Fed would not move. The U.S.'s manufacturing index rose to 50.9 in January, the highest since 2022, indicating a better economic outlook. News highlights: the rise of the influenza epidemic in Asia has led to a sharp rise in epidemic prevention stocks. The CDC of the Ministry of Health and Welfare has launched an influenza vaccination mechanism and expanded the use of antiviral drugs, which is expected to stimulate the demand for vaccines and medicines. Pharmaceutical stocks such as Yongzhen, 3705, launched Yikmao, Qiwag Wangshen, high-end and other vaccine stocks, and testing stocks Bailing Fujin and Pushin have all benefited. The market is optimistic that the flu vaccine will become the main source of income for Qiwag Wangshen, and the biotech stock index also rose against the trend. The influenza epidemic has led to a surge in demand for antiviral drugs and testing equipment. News highlights: in January this year, Taiwan's real estate market was affected by the Golden Dragon tsunami and the Spring Festival holiday, and the number of buildings transferred for sale in Liudo shrank sharply to 14,226, a monthly decrease of more than 30% and an annual decrease of more than 40%, hitting a new low. The decrease in transaction volume was due to the reduction in the number of working days, the policy crackdown on property speculation and the decrease in the wave of new home delivery. New Taipei City, and Tainan City saw a 44% year-on-year decline in trading volume. Experts believe that the contraction of the housing market may continue, and whether the housing price is revised down will depend on the stability of Taiwan's stock market and the impact of the future wave of new housing transactions. News highlights: the day before yesterday, 2 halves, it was rumored on the internet that Big S died of illness, and after verification, it was confirmed that the news was true, which was unbelievable. Big S has been strong all his life, paying for his family, although he often has disputes with his mother, he can always back down at critical moments. She is frank and outspoken, dares to love and hate and work in relationships, does not hide it, and is responsible for her own choices. Even after divorcing Wang Xiaofei, he still insisted on himself and had no regrets. Big S's transparency and authenticity make her one of the few exceptions in the art industry, although it often causes controversy, she always does it. News highlights Big S, Suzy Wan, died of influenza complicated by pneumonia in Japan, and the news made relatives and friends in the circle deeply saddened. Andy Lau, the king of Hong Kong who has collaborated with Big S in the movie Future Police, expressed his condolences through his agency and said, "I wish to go all the way and mourn my relatives." Big S once described that he was so excited that he almost fainted when he cooperated with Andy Lau, and regarded him as a god in his heart. The two also promoted together in Kangxi is Coming, and Andy Lau once said that he would fall in love with Big S. Fans also expressed their condolences to Big S on Andy Lau's social platform. News highlights Big S, Suzy Wan, died suddenly in Japan at the age of 48, and the news caused shock from all walks of life after it was exposed, but there are also recall groups who question that the news of the death was deliberately exposed when the news of the recall was published, and issued a curse to Big S and his family. Kuomintang spokesman Li Mingswan strongly condemned such acts and called on President Lai Ching-te to speak up for the Taiwanese star, saying that political controversy should not take precedence over humanity and respect, and criticizing some people's ruthless remarks towards the deceased. News highlights Big S, Suzy Wan, passed away in Japan due to flu complicated by pneumonia at the age of 48, causing fans to grieve. In response, Dr. Zhang explained on social media that some netizens questioned the Japanese medical system and thought that they were not immediately hospitalized or x-rayed. Dr. Zhang said that Japan's medical hierarchy is strict, emergency departments require appointments, and hospitals cannot admit all acute and severe cases, which is a situation that is difficult for Taiwanese people to understand. He added that influenza combined with pneumonia can cause severe disease quickly, the etiology is complex, and the medical history of each patient is different, which cannot be explained simply. News highlights Big S, Suzy Wan, died suddenly in Japan on the 2nd, and when the bad news came out, her ex-mother-in-law Zhonglan happened to post a self-encouragement on Weibo, and attached a video "I don't envy how many people in other people's live broadcast rooms, I only envy myself," which caused netizens to criticize her for rubbing traffic. Subsequently, Zhonglan mourned the S in the Douyin message area, saying that Ziwan's death is our common loss, and expressed concern for the two children, saying that she would do her best to comfort and protect the children. Zhonglan later posted a similar memorial post on Weibo, but deleted it soon after, and this series of works caused confusion from the outside world. News highlights Big S, Suzy Wan, died of influenza complicated by pneumonia in Japan at the age of 48. Emergency physician Wang Zihua reminded that although the flu vaccine cannot completely avoid infection, it can significantly reduce the risk of severe disease and hospitalization. He pointed out that influenza vaccine can reduce the chance of hospitalization due to influenza complications by about 60% and effectively reduce the occurrence of severe pneumonia disease. He also stressed that the key to influenza vaccination is to reduce severe disease, not to completely avoid infection, and recommended that everyone get influenza vaccination every year to protect themselves and their families. News highlights Big S, Suzy Wan, died of influenza complicated by pneumonia in Japan at the age of 48, shocking the Chinese community. Xiaoping, Yu Zhengxian, the younger brother of the late actor Dabai, Yu Bingxian, who was good friends with the S, posted a message of condolences, recalling the S's heartwarming actions in private, revealing that she had provided financial aid when Dabai was sick, and after Dabai passed away, she sent someone to help him bring his brother back to Taiwan. Xiaoping said sadly that it was his luckiest thing to know the S, and thanked her for her positive energy and help all the time, and finally he shouted to the S, wishing her to reunite with her brother in heaven. News highlights with the advent of the cold winter of the real estate market, the real estate industry is facing severe challenges. In the central and southern regions, 6 directly operated stores of Eastern Sen Housing in Kaohsiung have been closed and hundreds of people have been laid off. The industry predicts that with the sluggish buying gas, the real estate industry will enter a wave of consolidation and merger of stores, and if the policy is not improved, it may trigger a wave of large-scale closures. Real estate agents are facing high rents and operating difficulties, and it is expected that 20% of the real estate agents will withdraw from the market in 2024, and the industry has called on the government to introduce rescue measures. News highlights artist S, Suzy Wan, died of influenza complicated by pneumonia during the New Year's festival, causing shock to the outside world. Emergency physician Jian Jian reminded that when the 4 major symptoms of fever, vomiting, wheezing, and fainting appear, you should be sent to the hospital immediately, and signs such as high fever that does not go away, persistent vomiting, difficulty breathing, and coma need to be paid attention to. Big S began to cough and wheezing on January 29th, and after his condition worsened, he sought emergency medical treatment on the 31st, but unfortunately failed to save his life. News highlights actress S, Suzy Wan, unfortunately passed away due to influenza complicated by pneumonia, which made many people pay attention to the problem of medical treatment in Japan. The Japan National Tourism Organization, JNATO, provides a medical guide for foreigners, allowing travelers to search for medical institutions, procedures, and emergency information. In case of emergency, the website recommends using emergency car in large characters to help call an ambulance and provide pharmacy options. The website also recommends purchasing overseas travel insurance to avoid high medical costs and reminds travelers that they can get better services through medical insurance. News highlights according to the forecast of the Meteorological Administration, a strong mainland cold air mass will affect Taiwan on the 5th, bringing cold weather. The temperature in the north-central and northeastern parts will drop to 9-18 degrees, with localized brief rain. The temperature in the central and southeastern parts of the country is slightly higher, at 11-21 degrees, and there will be scattered brief rains in some areas. From Thursday, 6th, to Friday, 7th, the cold air mass will weaken slightly, and although the weather is still cool in various places, there will be brief rainfall in local areas. From Friday night to Saturday, 7th to 8th, another wave of strong cold air mass moved south, and the temperature dropped again. News highlights in the lottery of New Year's Goods Street in Niepo Township, Pingtung, the same person won the jackpot car for 2 consecutive years, causing netizens to question whether there is a black box. In this regard, Zhong Qingzhen, the mayor of Miapo Township, clarified that there was a public video at the lottery site, and emphasized that it was impossible to choose the same person to win the lottery if he wanted to cheat. Ms. Lam, who won the lottery, said that she was incredulous that she could win the jackpot and said that she would work harder to give back to the society. She mentioned that her daughter won the lottery last year and she collected it on her behalf, and this year she spent more than 1,000 yuan to participate in the lottery. News highlights Taiwanese artist S. Su Ziwan, died of influenza complicated by pneumonia in Japan at the age of 48, and the news of his death shocked the whole Taiwan. Zhu Yongzhi shared on Facebook the last moment of her rush to Big S, and sighed that Big S was as peaceful as falling asleep. Zhu Yongzhi revealed that Gu Junyi kissed goodbye affectionately at the last moment of the SS life, and choked up to say that Gu Junyi's cry broke the hearts of those present. Zhu Yongzhi also called on the public to give more space to the SS family, and hoped to meet again in the next life. News highlights in the program The Queen, Hiruyun said that travel is the most worthwhile expense, which can establish a deep relationship with her family. She shared that she spent 300,000 yuan to learn to ski but did not use the equipment anymore, which surprised the host Zheng Qiuchen. Another guest, Ichiko, talked about his love of drawing and shared a last-minute trip to Japan, which he thought was worth the cost. During the show, everyone also shared interesting stories about impulse travel and shopping, making the atmosphere more relaxed and fun. News highlights South Korean female anchor Oh Anna died in September last year, and the news of her death was hidden for 3 months before it was revealed. She is suspected of committing suicide due to workplace bullying, and the police have launched an investigation. Before her death, she hosted a show with a bandage, was accused of covering up the scars of self-harm, and left a 2,750-word suicide note accusing bullying. Her family revealed that she had been treated in more than 10 psychiatric departments. Korean netizens paid attention to the case, and netizens sued MBC executives through the national mailbox, and the police have now officially intervened in the investigation. News highlights Big S Su Ziwan passed away due to influenza complicated by pneumonia at the age of 48, and the news shocked all walks of life. Mr. 486, Chen Yanchang, an e-commerce internet celebrity, posted a sarcastic post, saying I wish Big S to be reincarnated in China, which caused strong dissatisfaction among netizens. Although he later apologized and corrected his remarks, it was difficult to quell the outrage, and many people launched a boycott of his e-commerce platform. Xiao S expressed his condolences through his agent, thanked his sister for her company, and said that he would miss her forever. News highlights Big S, Su Ziwan, traveled to Japan during the Spring Festival, unfortunately contracted influenza complicated by pneumonia, and was sent to the hospital for treatment at the age of 48. Her best friend Wu Psi rushed to the hospital, hugged Xiao S and cried, and said sadly, Ziwan, I will always love you. Aya, who is also the 7 fairies of Huai, also mourned, recalling the sisters' reunion last month, but she didn't expect it to be the last one, and sighed, your departure is a sadness engraved in my heart. News highlights 48-year-old actress S. Su Ziwan, was unfortunately infected with influenza complicated by pneumonia when she traveled to Japan during the Spring Festival, and died on the morning of the 2nd. Before the news was confirmed, her ex-husband Wang Xiaofei had changed her social platform avatar to all black, and she once expressed uneasiness in her mother Zhonglan's live broadcast. Wang Xiaofei returned to Taiwan yesterday with a sad expression, saying, Big S will always be my family. Zhonglan also spoke out and was willing to help Big S in the future, emphasizing that this is the common mission and goal of the two families. News highlights artist S. Su Ziwan, died of influenza complicated by pneumonia while traveling to Japan at the age of 48. At the age of 17, she and her sister Xiao S formed S.O.S debut. The two had a deep relationship. Xiao S once described her sister as a husband and wife in her previous life, and her affectionate confession moved Big S to tears. Big S also loves his sister very much, and once prayed for little S to bear misfortune on her behalf. Her acting career and life experience are full of twists and turns, 2 miscarriages, marital changes, and she is still strong in the face of it, and now she has passed away suddenly, which is regrettable. News highlights artist S. Su Ziwan, died of influenza complicated by pneumonia during the Lunar New Year at the age of 48, and the news shocked the entertainment industry. Her husband Gu Junyi accompanied her until the last moment, crying and kissing goodbye, which broke the heart of her friend Zhu Yongzhi present, describing S as a sleeping beauty, calm and serene. She lamented that she had planned to get together after the Chinese New Year, but it became goodbye. Friends have posted condolences, hoping that the outside world will give space and time to the family, cherish the moment, and bid farewell to this brave and chic woman with love. News highlights U.S. President Donald Trump announced a moratorium on 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada for at least 30 days. Mexico will send 10,000 additional troops to the border, and Canada will invest $1.3 billion to strengthen security. The 10% tariff on Chinese goods will remain in effect as scheduled. The move sparked market volatility and congressional controversy. In addition, the Trump administration's changes to USAID's operations have raised concerns about the misuse of personal data. Democratic lawmakers are concerned about the economic impact and urge the government to reconsider its policies. News highlights actress S. Su Ziwan, traveled to Japan during the Spring Festival, but died of influenza complicated by pneumonia at the age of 48, and the news shocked all walks of life. In this regard, Taiwanese doctors in Japan explained that Japan's medical classification is strict, and non-serious cases require clinic referrals, and emergency departments even need to make appointments, which is very different from Taiwan. In addition, he stressed that everyone's physique is different, and it is not uncommon for influenza to cause severe illness, and he hopes that the outside world will look at it rationally. After the sudden death of Big S, Taiwan's flu vaccine appointments were full, and medical stocks soared, setting off discussions on overseas medical and insurance claims. News highlights S. Su Ziwan, went to Japan with his family during the Chinese New Year, but unfortunately died of influenza complicated by pneumonia at the age of 48. Doctors point out that it takes 2 weeks for the flu vaccine to take effect, and if you are about to go abroad but don't have time to get it, you can choose to buy a flu-specific medicine at your own expense, such as gram flu or Kafluza. If you have symptoms such as high fever, shortness of breath, and lack of energy, you should seek medical attention as soon as possible. Big S had a violent cough while traveling in Japan, which quickly led to pneumonia and worsened, and finally unfortunately died of sepsis, shocking all walks of life. News highlights today. 4th, under the influence of a strong continental cold air mass, the weather in Taiwan is cold. The lowest temperature in the early morning of New Taipei Wugu is 7.2 degrees, and the low temperature in Taipei City is 10.3 degrees, close to the cold current standard. The weather turned dry, with localized brief rains in the eastern, southeastern and south-central mountainous areas. According to meteorological anchor Lin Jiakai, the cold snap will last until the 5th, and the temperature will return during the day on the 5th, and another wave of strong cold air will hit from Friday, 7th, night to Saturday, 8th, and the temperature will drop again and last until the 10th. News highlights actress S. Suzy Wan, died of influenza complicated by pneumonia in Japan, causing the public to rush to get the flu vaccine. Minister of Health and Welfare Chu Taiyuan said that there are about 160,000 doses of publicly funded vaccines left, and priority will be given to high-risk groups to vaccinate, stressing that the current anti-influenza drugs are sufficient, and the epidemic is expected to stabilize next week or next week. Chu Taiyuan also reminded the public that if they have symptoms such as high fever and difficulty breathing, they should seek medical attention as soon as possible, and all medical institutions have prepared sufficient medicines and will continue to monitor the development of the epidemic. News highlights DeepSeek, a Chinese AI startup, has launched DeepSeek R1, a low-cost, high-performance large-scale inference model, and DeepSeek V3, an open-source model, to change the global AI trend. Analyst Ming-Chi Kuo pointed out that the rise of DeepSeek has accelerated the development of on-device AI, which is expected to drive the boom of on-premise LLM deployment and increase the training demand for NVIDIA's H100. Although the device side may replace some cloud requirements, the two will grow together to form a new AI ecosystem. In the long run, TSMC will become the biggest beneficiary of device-side AI, while NVIDIA will face greater competitive pressure. News highlights Big S. Suzy Wan, unfortunately died of influenza complicated by pneumonia in Japan, which caused many people to pay attention to health and travel safety. After sharing his mother's experience, a netizen called on everyone to pay attention to how to deal with illness when they are sick. Netizens recalled that when they traveled to Hokkaido with their mother in 2018, their mother had caught a cold before departure and had not fully recovered, but she still decided to go abroad. As a result, my mother's condition deteriorated dramatically after arriving in Japan, and she was finally diagnosed with pneumonia complicated by sepsis, and was admitted to an intensive care unit with medical expenses as high as 3.8 million yen, about 2 million Taiwan dollars. Therefore, netizens reminded that if you feel unwell before going abroad, you should be cautious and evaluate, do not brace hard, and avoid minor illnesses from causing big problems. News highlights the unfortunate death of Big S. Suzy Wan, has caused widespread mourning, but the e-commerce Mr. 486 has made inappropriate remarks on social media, alluding to the fact that Big S and his sister Xiao S. Suzity, should be reincarnated in China, which has aroused strong disgust and criticism from netizens. In the face of the outrage on the internet, Mr. 486 first issued an apology and corrected the original text to hope that they would be reincarnated in the United States, but this has not subsided the controversy. Subsequently, he posted an apology video on social platforms, admitting that his remarks were inappropriate and saying that he would self-reflect. Although he has apologized, some netizens are still dissatisfied with his remarks. News highlights K-Wins was involved in the Jinghua City case and the political donation fraud case, and the media exposed shredded handwritten notes, the content of which mentioned Orange exit, MUK internal account and the floor area ratio of Kaohsiung state guests, etc., which became evidence of suspected collusion to destroy evidence. People's Party Chen's Haihan questioned the media and prosecutors for using fragments of information to cobble together the crime, saying that his actions were similar to those of the police chief during the White Terror, and criticized such behavior as improper and distorted. News highlights Tang Yuan, a 34-year-old woman from Shaanxi, used to have a high-paying job with an annual income of 400,000 yuan, but her long-term high-pressure work caused her to suffer from thyroid cancer. After the surgery, she decided to quit her job and use her savings of 2 million yuan to live a retirement life, focusing on health and financial management. Tang Yuan is careful in his calculations, relying on fixed deposits and short-term financial management to maintain his life, and lives a free life with low material desires and no anxiety. She reminds everyone that health is the most important thing and that you should learn to stop and rest when you are stressed. News highlights Big S. Suzy Wan, died of a severe illness due to influenza during the Chinese New Year, which shocked the whole Taiwan. Physician Shen Zhenan pointed out that the 48-year-old Big S is not a high-risk group, and the focus of the flu vaccine should not be on whether to administer it, but on whether the treatment drugs are used in a timely manner. Shen Zhenan believes that the SS death was more due to bad luck, because her condition progressed rapidly and she may not have used anti-influenza drugs such as gram flu in time. He stressed that severe influenza deaths at this age were extremely rare and should be attributed to her constitution and luck. News highlights the sudden death of Big S shocked the Chinese circle, and the Japanese and South Korean media also reported it on a large scale. Korean netizens were reluctant to accept the love ending between Gu Junyi and S, and Korean media reported Gu Junyi's response, saying that he was in poor condition. Ji Yongji revealed that Gu Junyi affectionately said goodbye to S with a kiss, and described his grief when he was dying. Ji Yongji shared on Facebook that she saw S's peaceful appearance, and said endless tears, indescribable sadness, emphasizing that Gu Junyi's affectionate farewell was heartbreaking. News highlights Big S died suddenly of influenza complicated by pneumonia at the age of 48, shocking the whole Taiwan. Although some netizens questioned the news of his death at first, it was finally confirmed by Xiao S that her ex-husband Wang Xiaofei also changed the Weibo photo to all black, which made the outside world deeply regretful. The Taiwanese drama Meteor Garden in which S participated has caused a sensation in Asia so far, but 5 stars in the play unfortunately passed away. Including Su Huifeng, who played the sister of Daiming Temple, Su Yilun, who played Osyang, and Njunkin and Dabing, all died of illness, which made fans feel sad. News highlights: a bizarre medical accident occurred in Thailand, and a 33-year-old woman, Kate Suda, died of a lack of oxygen for 5 minutes during a tooth-filling operation. Kate Suda, who has been a dancer in Singapore for 10 years, was injured in a car accident while visiting relatives in Thailand, and her family arranged for her to undergo dental restorative surgery. Unexpectedly, the medical team's negligence was fatal, and the hospital admitted the mistake but asked the family to show a pay slip to determine the amount of compensation. Since Kate Suda is a freelancer and her salary is paid in cash, it is difficult for her family to provide pay slips, and her friends have called for compensation to be dealt with as soon as possible. News highlights: Hwang Kyo-kang, acting chairman of the People's Party, said in an exclusive interview that the People's Party aims to establish party caucuses in Liudu and Hsinchu City in the 2026 local elections. He stressed that he will go all out to participate in the election campaign, whether it is a by-election for the whole of Taiwan or a personal candidacy for a local governor. He did not rule out the possibility of running for county and city mayor in person, but he has not yet determined the specific choice, and said that New Taipei City is his service area, and whether he will run for the district in the future is still uncertain. Hwang Kyo-kang also said that if the Blue and White Alliance has a primary election mechanism, he will not exclude it. News highlights: former People's Party chairman Ko Owens was detained and banned from seeing him in a case of corruption and embezzlement of political donations. According to media reports, when the prosecutors searched his office, they found torn notes in the garbage can, which involved sensitive matters such as Orange going abroad. In this regard, Chen Hai-han of the People's Party criticized the media for the unwarranted connection between the media and the censorship, and called it a speculation in parallel time and space, implying that the censorship was similar to the White Terror of the past. Hwang Kyo-kang criticized Mirror Weekly for deliberately distorting information. News highlights: Big S, Suzy Wan, unfortunately passed away in Japan due to influenza complicated by pneumonia at the age of 48. Xiao S confirmed her sister's death through her agent, and said that the news of Big S's death made her very sad. Xiao S, who originally planned to resume work on the 13th to host Miss Buxadai, has not yet been determined whether he will return to work as scheduled because of the sudden death of his sister. The TV station said that it has not yet confirmed the timing of the recording. The entertainment industry and fans were shocked and saddened by the sudden death of Big S. News highlights: the news of the S, Suzy Wan, dying of influenza complicated by pneumonia shocked all walks of life, but some reports pointed out that the actual cause of death may be sepsis. Medical expert Dr. Lin explained that sepsis is a systemic infection caused by a bacterial infection, and if not treated in time, the mortality rate is quite high, which may eventually lead to multiple organ failure. Big S developed cough symptoms after arriving in Japan and sought medical attention on the 31st, apparently showing signs of infection, and eventually died of sepsis. The development of sepsis usually causes septic shock and may be triggered by bacterial pneumonia. Physician Lim points out that the rate at which sepsis progresses varies from person to person, with younger and healthy people progressing more slowly, but the consequences can be very serious if not treated promptly. News highlights: Sekwaklong's satisfaction with governance increased from 42.99% in July 2023 to 50.00% in 2024, indicating an increase in public support. Women's support is higher than that of men, and citizens are most satisfied with sightseeing, transportation, and public security. The change in governance and dialogue with the public have strengthened the image of the municipal government, with more than half of the public expressing satisfaction with the response of the municipal government. The poll also showed that the blue and green were evenly matched in Keelung City, showing that Sekwaklong actively communicated and improved after the recall, which was affirmed by the public. News highlights: the wave of recalls in Taiwan has intensified, and blue and green legislators have been named. Ye Yunzi, Wang Hongwei, Su Kioxin, and Wu Saiyao, Wu Pi, and others of the Green Committee have all been recalled. If Ye Yunzi is recalled, the by-election list includes DPP lawmakers Dai Weishan, He Bowen, and others, and the blue camp may send Zhong Peijun to run. The Kuomintang, KMT, countered by striking and recalling and stepped up online propaganda. News highlights: actress S, Suzy Wan, died of illness on February 2 at the age of 48. It is reported that she developed symptoms of cough and asthma on January 29, and the tour guide revealed that she did not receive immediate treatment, and was sent to the hospital for diagnosis and treatment after her condition deteriorated, and was finally diagnosed with influenza A complicated by pneumonia. Former legislator Guo Zhengliang pointed out that if S had been sent to Tokyo for treatment at that time, this tragedy might have been avoided, and lamented that she could not receive proper treatment in the early stage, which led to the aggravation of complications and eventually passed away regrettably. News highlights: after S, Suzy Wan, died of illness on February 2, the issue of parental authority of children has attracted attention. According to Taiwanese law, after the divorce, S originally owned the parental rights of the children, and after her death, the parental rights will be transferred to the surviving party, that is, Wang Xiaofei. If Wang Xiaofei is unable to exercise parental authority without a major reason, she may become the child's parental authority. Although the grandmother can fight for a change of parental authority, according to the law, the father's parental authority takes precedence, so the child may be taken to Chinese mainland unless Wang Xiaofei agrees to give it up. News highlights: actress S, Suzy Wan, died on February 2 at the age of 48 due to influenza complicated by pneumonia. The family will take the ashes back to Taiwan after the application is done in Japan. According to the regulations, Cal and Evergreen may allow relatives and friends to bring cremated ashes on board under escort and will not be transported as cargo. Family members are required to apply 48 hours in advance and can choose to have the ashes as carry-on baggage or purchase a seat, and must provide relevant supporting documents. Big SS family hopes that the media will respect his privacy and refrain from secretly taking photos during transportation. News highlights: the well-known artist S unfortunately passed away due to influenza complicated by pneumonia, triggering a wave of national rush to get vaccinated, and the publicly funded vaccines in some areas have been snatched up. Minister of Health and Welfare Chu Taiyuan said that there are currently more than 160,000 doses of vaccines at public expense, and priority is given to high-risk groups such as the elderly and patients with chronic diseases. Although there is a shortage of vaccines in many districts, medical institutions are still providing vaccines at their own expense. Chu Taiyuan called on the public to pay attention to their physical condition and seek medical treatment as soon as possible if they are not feeling well, and stressed that epidemic prevention requires public-private cooperation to deal with the epidemic. News highlights: the artist S died suddenly due to influenza complicated by pneumonia, and topics such as overseas medical treatment and travel safety insurance have attracted great attention. Lin Shibi, a former infectious disease physician at National Taiwan University Hospital, reminded that the travel safety insurance launched by most insurance companies does not cover notifiable infectious diseases, such as new crown pneumonia and mpox, and only a few insurance companies such as Want Yalian, Chubb, Taiwan Product Insurance, and Nanshan Life Insurance provide solutions that cover notifiable infectious diseases. Before leaving the country, travelers should choose a suitable insurance plan to avoid future claims disputes. News highlights: the wave of recall swept across Taiwan, and yesterday, 19 militia groups reached the threshold for the recall and joint signature of Kuomintang regional legislators, and sent documents to the Central Election Committee. According to Shang Yufu, a veteran media person, the recall threshold is 25%, and even in the Blue Camp advantageous constituency, if there are no further restrictions, KMT legislators such as Fu Kunking and Su Kioksan will inevitably face challenges. Shang Yufu pointed out that the recall, such as the Green Camp mobilizing votes, has an advantage, and the Blue Camp has shrunk votes, making it impossible for any KMT constituency to stabilize. News highlights: at 5:35 a.m. today, a fall occurred in a hotel in the West District of Taichung City. A 74-year-old woman surnamed Ye fell from the 4th floor, and there were no signs of life at the scene, and the police confirmed her death after arriving at the scene. Mrs. Yat, an accountant at the hotel, said she wanted to go to the toilet before falling from the building, and then fell through the window. Police have preliminarily ruled out external intervention and are investigating the surveillance cameras and related evidence. The case is being investigated and handled by the Taichung District Prosecutor's Office. The authorities remind that if you have psychological difficulties, you should actively seek social resources for support and provide relevant helplines. News highlights: to Su Ziwan, contracted influenza complicated by pneumonia while traveling in Japan during the Spring Festival, and was declared dead at 7 a.m. on the 2nd at the age of 48. When Wang Xiaofei was critically ill in DS, she revealed ominous signs in her mother Zhonglan's live broadcast. DS and Wang Xiaofei have been married for 10 years and have 2 children, and she has suffered from heart disease and epilepsy for a long time. Wang Xiaofei returned to Taiwan after learning the news, expressing that Big S will always be my family, and Zhonglan also expressed her willingness to provide assistance in dealing with the aftermath. News highlights: Big S died of illness on the 2nd, and after the news came out, Wang Xiaofei will go to Japan to bid farewell to his ex-wife, instead of returning to Taiwan in a hurry. DS and Gu Junyi's marriage has been full of happiness in recent years, and Shang and Gu Junyi appeared at the banquet 10 days ago, with a ruddy complexion and a bright smile. The love story between DS and Gu Junyi is touching. Gu Junyi once said love at first sight, and DS also expressed that everything became different after meeting him. The sudden death of Big S shocked and emotionally shocked the outside world. News highlights: DS traveled to Japan with her family, her sister Xiao S and her mother, Su's mother, during which she developed cough and asthma symptoms, which later worsened and unfortunately passed away on February 2nd. According to the tour guide, DS visited a small hospital and a big hospital during the trip, and finally his condition deteriorated sharply. Su's mother issued a statement on the 3rd, saying that she could not return to Taiwan for the time being because she needed to handle the funeral in Japan, and implored the media to respect DS's wishes and avoid chasing pictures. News highlights: Big S, Su Ziwan, unfortunately died of influenza complicated by pneumonia at the age of 48. Kuomintang spokesman Li Mingxian was outraged by some recall groups questioning the timing of DS's death and accusing him of linking the tragedy to political events. Li Mingxian strongly condemned these acts, called on everyone to be empathetic in grief, respect the loss of DS and his family, and criticized certain political extremist remarks, calling on President Li King to speak up for the Taiwanese actress. News highlights: the conflict between the current legislators intensified, and K. Jianming, the chief of the DPP Legislative Yuan Caucus, proposed to recall the Blue Committee, which sparked widespread discussion. So far, 19 KMT legislature constituencies have reached the threshold for joint signatures and sent documents to the Central Election Committee. The Blue Camp countered and targeted DPP legislators. Veteran media personality Dong Zizan pointed out that DPP legislators Wu Luo and Shenying are in the most dangerous situation in their indigenous constituencies, predicting that they may face recall, stressing that the KMT can mobilize enough votes in these constituencies to fight back. News highlights: on the evening of the 2nd, Japanese netizens suspected of insinuating that Big S died of illness on Facebook, which set off heated discussions, until noon on the 3rd, when Xiao S confirmed the news through his agent, saying that Big S unfortunately passed away due to influenza complicated by pneumonia. Xiao S sighed with his deep affection for his sister and expressed his eternal nostalgia. Big S and Little S have been supporting each other for 30 years since they debuted as a group in 1994. DS once wrote Sisterly Love to record the brotherhood between the two, and left many classic works in the entertainment industry. News highlights: Keelung Mayor Xie Kuolayong's satisfaction with governance in 2024 has increased significantly, reaching 50.00%, an increase of 7 percentage points from 2023. According to a poll by Ling Media, women's support for Xie is relatively high, reaching 51.42%. Based on the poll data, Keelung is evenly matched by Blue and Green, with 40.31% anti-blue and 43.54% anti-green. Xie Kuolayong's administration has been well received by the public, especially in the areas of tourism, transportation, and law and order. More than half of the citizens are satisfied with the way the city government has spoken to and responded to the public after the recall. News highlights: Xiao S confirmed today, 3rd, that his sister Big S died of influenza complicated by pneumonia in Japan at the age of 48. It is rumored that on January 29th, DS began to cough and asthma, returned home after being sent to the hospital on the 31st, and was diagnosed with influenza again on February 1st, and then his condition took a sharp turn for the worse. According to sources familiar with the situation in Tokyo, the cause of death was sepsis, and DS unfortunately died without timely installation of Yake membrane for rescue. News highlights: Liu Xianxi, the head of the Third Ring Gang, was attacked and killed by 5 masked men armed with knives and guns at the entrance of Zudongtang, and the police investigation found that the case may be related to the fighting within the gang. After investigation by the task force, the driver and the 5 suspects involved in the case have returned to Taiwan from Japan and Thailand and have been detained. Today, Liu Xianzi's farewell ceremony was held in Zudong-Dongsheng Park, and in order to prevent the gang from making trouble, the police dispatched 150 police officers, reloaded security, and conducted identity checks. The police stressed that they would strictly enforce the law to ensure that order at the scene was not disturbed. News highlights: Big S, Su Ziwan, unfortunately passed away in Japan due to influenza complicated by pneumonia, which shocked all walks of life. Su's mother said that she would bring the SS body back to Taiwan, and in accordance with Japanese regulations, she would bring the ashes back to Taiwan after cremation. Taiwan's 3 airlines, China Airlines, Evergreen, and Xingyu, allow cremated ashes to be carried on board as hand luggage or purchase a seat to be escorted by a loved one, and can assist with customs clearance through the airport's green lane. Airlines need to communicate in advance and prepare documents such as death certificates, cremation permits, etc. Xiao S also confirmed the death of his sister and was deeply saddened. News highlights: Taiwan has announced a preliminary roster of 27 players for the World Baseball Classic qualifiers, including 15 pitchers, 3 catchers, 5 infielders, and 4 outfielders. The team will be dominated by young fighters, such as pitchers such as Chen Baiyu and Xia Zikan, as well as hitters such as Zhang Yechen and Chen Zhexian. Head coach Zheng Hejua said that the final list will be announced on February 15th, and stressed that the Chinese team will compete to advance with the top 12 to win gold. News highlights: Taiwanese actress S. Su Ziwan, died of influenza complicated by pneumonia on the 3rd at the age of 48, shocking the entertainment industry. Producer Wang Weishong conveyed heartache and gratitude on behalf of the family, revealing that he could not return to Taiwan for the time being due to the need to go through Japan-related procedures. S was active in film and television during his lifetime, and his most well-known works include Meteor Garden and Kangxi is Coming. Her and the late dance teacher Liu Zhen's shoe-grabbing fun story became a hot topic among netizens, and everyone mourned her and looked forward to her and Liu Zhen continuing to PK beautiful shoes in heaven. News highlights: Artist S. Su Ziwan, died of illness in Japan, shocking all walks of life. It is understood that the SS body will be cremated in Japan, and the ashes will be brought back to Taiwan after the family completes the formalities. This is a family trip with her family, and Xiao S's 2 daughters have returned to Taiwan first. After her ex-husband Wang Xiaofei learned the news, she also rushed back to Taiwan and said sadly, "I beg you to say more good things about her." S gang members Wu Psi and Makio also posted condolences, expressing their infinite longing and sentimentality for Big S. News highlights: Taiwanese artist S. Su Ziwan, died of influenza complicated by pneumonia in Japan at the age of 48, which shocked the outside world. Physician Zhang Guanyu said that the question of delayed medical treatment should not be too condemned. He pointed out that the behavior of seeking medical treatment is affected by the characteristics of the disease, the environment, and the internal state of the patient. In particular, patients may not be able to clearly diagnose their medical conditions, and the language and institutional barriers to seeking medical treatment in foreign countries may affect the timing of seeking medical treatment. He also recalled the SS movie role, thinking that she had created a wonderful life in reality, and also wished her that she could pursue more happiness and wisdom in the next life. News highlights: Artist S. Su Ziwan, died of illness in Japan on the 3rd at the age of 48, and this news caused excitement from all walks of life. However, at the same time, a press conference was held on the general recall of Taiwan, and some recall groups questioned the blue and white camp using the news of Big SS death to divert focus. Kuomintang chairman Zhu Liluang expressed sadness and regret over this, and criticized the DPP for being all concerned with politics, throwing out absurd arguments that such behavior hurts the basic good ideas of society, and called on society to show more humanity and virtue rather than political antagonism. News highlights: Artist S. Su Ziwan, unfortunately died of influenza complicated by pneumonia at the age of 48, and attracted attention to the issue of inheritance. The lawyer pointed out that if the S does not make a will, the estate will be divided equally between his spouse Gu Junyi and his 2 minor children in accordance with the law. Since the child is underage, Wang Xiaofei, as a guardian, will have great rights over the management of the estate. Lawyers emphasize that in order to avoid estate problems, it is advisable to make a valid will or testamentary trust to ensure that the property of the minor children is properly managed. News highlights: 48-year-old actress S. Su Ziwan, unfortunately died in Japan due to flu complicated by pneumonia at the age of 48, shocking the Chinese entertainment industry. The family plans to bring the ashes back to Taiwan after the cremation of the remains is handled in Japan, and coordinate with China Airlines or Evergreen to allow the ashes to be brought on board with relatives and friends. According to the regulations, the body is cremated within 3 days and preserved with dry ice. Xiao SS agent issued a statement, thanking everyone for their concern, and said that he would always miss Big S, emphasizing that he would always love her and remember her bits and pieces. News highlights: S. Su Ziwan, died in Japan due to influenza complicated by pneumonia during the Spring Festival at the age of 48. She has a deep relationship with her sister Xiao S, and once had a deathbed agreement before her death, asking Xiao S to accompany her through the last stage of her life. Big S once revealed that he was in poor physical condition, and had faced life-threatening dangers many times, and even lost his breath when he gave birth to his second child. These experiences made her realize that her body could go wrong at any time, so she made it a habit to keep track of her last words. Xiao S stayed in the hospital throughout the whole process, witnessing the death of his sister, crying bitterly and being paralyzed. News highlights: the sudden death of the S. Su Ziwan, caused shock from all walks of life, but a tour guide suspected of receiving the SS family exposed the medical treatment process and detailed timeline without the consent of the family, and said, if you had been concerned at that time and saw a doctor carefully, the S would not have died. The move sparked a strong reaction from netizens, who criticized the tour guide and travel agency for their lack of professional ethics, and some even threatened to boycott the tour group. Netizens expressed extreme anger at the tour guide's actions, questioning that he had released sensitive details without the family having yet to issue a statement. News highlights: the success of DeepSeek has triggered shocks in the global AI market, and Taiwanese capital service stocks have performed well, attracting capital inflows. After the Lunar New Year, information service stocks have become the focus of the market, with the stock prices of Midat, Information Communication, and Huajing rising to the limit, and TSMC leading the market to rebound. Driven by the demand for cloud services, Midat is actively deploying 3 major public clouds, and the market is optimistic about future growth. The stock price rose with enthusiasm, with a volume of nearly 30,000 contracts, indicating that investors have high expectations for its prospects. News highlights Yuantat Investment Trust announced that it will reduce the manager fee and custody fee of Yuantat Taiwan 50, 0050, to 0.11% to 0.03%, and the total expense ratio will be reduced to 0.14%, making it the lowest ETF in Taiwan. The adjustment is aimed at enhancing competitiveness and attracting more capital inflows, especially in the context of the strong performance of the Fubon Terrace 50. In addition, a new provision of fund split and anti-split has been added to the prospectus to provide conditions for future splits and lower the entry threshold for petty bourgeoisie, which is beneficial to long-term investors. News highlights last week, Trump announced that he would impose tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and adjusted policy several times in a matter of days. Initially, the White House said it would consider exempting USMCA-eligible cars from tariffs, but Trump eventually reversed the proposal and imposed 25% tariffs on both countries. Subsequently, Mexico and Canada negotiated with Trump separately and finally obtained an agreement to delay the implementation of the tariffs, and Mexico was granted a 1-month extension. The policy change shocked global markets and showed Trump's hawkish trade stance at the risk of economic risks. News highlights after the sudden death of DS, the issue of 2 marriages and inheritance attracted attention. A lawyer pointed out that if there is no will, more than 600 million inheritance may be controlled by Wang Xiaofei. The number of remarriages in Taiwan is increasing year by year, reaching 44,435 in 2023, and experts recommend that remarried people should discuss the distribution of assets before marriage, especially if the restructured family involves children from the previous marriage. The legal associate pointed out that unless otherwise agreed, the property will be distributed according to the statutory property system and the inheritance will be distributed according to the law of inheritance. News highlights in 2004, the book Beauty King sold more than 200,000 copies, setting a sales record for Taiwanese artist books and beauty books, and became the queen of goods. However, in order to pursue fair skin, she has taken anticoagulants for a long time and recommended controversial whitening methods, which has caused a lot of controversy. Her insistence on beauty extends to her regret that she failed to return to the stage and wear her favorite clothes as she wished. News highlights Big S, Suzy Wan, died suddenly of the Japanese flu on the 3rd at the age of 48. The love story between her and her husband Gu Junyi touched Taiwan and South Korea, but her sudden death attracted the attention of the Korean internet, especially whether Gu Junyi stayed by her side. Ji Yongja posted a document confirming that Gu Junyi said goodbye affectionately when she was dying and accompanied her on her last journey. After reading it, emotions exploded, and many fans left messages expressing their heartbreak, thinking that this tragedy was more cruel than the movie, and feeling distressed for Gu Junyi's pain and memories. News highlights DS, Suzy Wan, died of influenza complicated by pneumonia during the Spring Festival at the age of 48. My sister Xiao S stayed in the hospital throughout the whole process to witness her sister's death. The two sisters have a deep relationship, and Big S once encouraged Little S to return to the hosting world and became her strongest backing. Xiao S thanked Big S for his support many times before the Golden Bell Awards, but if it weren't for his sister's encouragement, it would be difficult for him to return to the stage. This affectionate sisterhood is moving. Point 3. News highlights Big S, Suzy Wan, died suddenly in Japan at the age of 48 due to influenza complicated by pneumonia. She contracted the flu at the end of last month, and her condition worsened after arriving at the end of last month, and she called an ambulance for the second time but missed the golden time for treatment, and finally passed away on the morning of February 2nd. Family and friends were deeply saddened by her sudden death, and her ex-husband Wang Xiaofei also returned from Thailand in a hurry. The body will be cremated in Japan and then transported back to Taiwan for burial, and the farewell ceremony is still being negotiated. The passing of Big S made fans infinitely regretful and unacceptable. News highlights Big S, Suzy Wan, died suddenly of influenza complicated by pneumonia at the age of 48, and the news shocked the entertainment industry. Xiaoping, Yu Zhongxian, posted a message of condolences on the 3rd, recalling the SS' deep affection for him and his brother Deping before his death, especially when Deping fell ill in 2012, he gave a lot of financial aid and support. Xiaoping lamented that knowing Big S was the luckiest thing for him, and said that he would always remember the positive energy transmitted by Big S. Even if you are so sudden, your personality must wish we not to be too sad, he wrote. News highlights Big S, Suzy Wan, died of influenza complicated by pneumonia at the age of 48. Physician Shen Zhennan said on social media that the focus of the discussion should not be on whether to get vaccinated, emphasizing that Big S is not a high-risk group, and if she is vaccinated, it will be abnormal. He pointed out that the flu vaccine is prioritized for people over 65 years old, and people under the age of 50 do not need to worry about the risk of death from the flu. Shen Zhennan believes that the SS' death is related to her physique and luck, and mentions whether the hospital provides effective treatment, such as the use of gram flu medicine or Yekay membrane. News highlights Big S, Suzy Wan, died in Japan due to influenza complicated by pneumonia at the age of 48, and the news shocked all walks of life. Big S has a deep relationship with producer Wang Weishong and his wife Sister Zai. Sister Zai revealed that when she received a call from Big SS' mother, she thought it was a dispute at home, but she didn't expect it to be the news of Big SS' death. Recalling that S attended the ginning banquet of Wang Weishong's beloved daughter before, and participated with her husband Gu Junyi and other friends, the happy scene at that time was like yesterday, but now it has become an eternal memory, which is extremely regrettable. News highlights Jeremy Lin will serve as the coach of the Development League, G League, team in the NBA Rookie Challenge. Jeremy Lin has played prominently in the NBA and led the G League team, which will compete against 3 other teams. The remaining 3 teams in the Rookie Challenge are coached by Hardaway, RIDG Mont, and Mullen, all of whom are members of the U.S. Basketball Hall of Fame. Ultimately, the winning team of the Rookie Challenge will be led by WNBA legend Parker in the NBA All-Star Game. News highlights Big S unfortunately passed away from influenza complicated by pneumonia during a trip to Japan, which sparked discussions about the Japanese medical system. Experts point out that Japan's medical classification system is strict, and many rural hospitals have no emergency department or physicians on duty, requiring referrals to obtain a higher level of care. In addition, some doctors said that Japanese doctors have a conservative attitude towards foreign patients, and there may be language communication barriers, which may affect the treatment of Big S's condition. Some people also shared their experience of seeking medical treatment in Japan, pointing out that the country's medical system is conservative and emergency resources are limited, which may affect the timeliness of treatment. News highlights the sudden death of Big S has sparked discussions and questions on the internet, especially about whether Fanwiki and his wife were infected with the flu. According to the doctor's analysis, the incubation period of influenza is usually 3 to 5 days, and the progression of the SS illness coincides with the timeline of Fanwiki's family contracting the flu. Dr. Su Yifeng pointed out that the flu is contagious 1 to 2 days before the onset of the disease and will remain contagious for a period of time after the fever, so it can be speculated that the flu of Fanwiki and his wife may have spread to the S before she showed symptoms. This has sparked a debate about responsibility for the spread of the disease and the need for public health preparedness. News highlights the unfortunate death of Big S has aroused great concern about the prevention and treatment of influenza among the whole people, and the Minister of Health and Welfare, Chu Taiyuan, also emphasized the current supply of vaccines and anti-influenza drugs. Although the number of publicly funded influenza vaccines is limited, more than 160,000 doses are available for high-risk groups such as the elderly and people with chronic diseases. Chu Taiyuan called on medical institutions to be vigilant and assist in epidemic prevention efforts to cope with the current peak of influenza. The government will continue to monitor the epidemic situation and adjust the anti-epidemic measures as appropriate. News highlights Liu Xianxi, the eldest brother of the Three Rings gang in Zhejiang, was shot dead and his palm was broken on January 24, and the 6 people involved in the case were absconded and sent back to Taiwan, and all of them were detained. The farewell ceremony was held today, 4th, at Tongcheng Park. Because the case involved gang infighting, the police were on standby, deploying more than 100 police forces, and special police officers with submachine guns set up checkpoints to strictly check the identities of the participants and prevent gangs from taking the opportunity to assemble. The venue is located around the Zhejiang transfer station. The venue layout began the day after the incident. The scene is placed with 9 layers of mitta and white lions. Participants must verify their identities and stamp their seals to identify. The police emphasize law enforcement in accordance with the law, maintain law and order.